minutos e passo depois. So, okay, I think, okay, como não temos ainda pessoas estrangeiras na audiência, eu vou tomar a liberdade de falar em português. O nosso amigo Alberto Pezzi, que nos dá o grato prazer de estar aqui connosco, não fala em português, mas percebe o português. Eu sei que ele percebe, que eu já estive com ele em vários contextos e percebe. Muito obrigado por estarem aqui presentes. Nós fizemos no ano passado, e alguns das pessoas estão aqui, a Ana Lehmann, o Fernando Sousa participaram nesse ciclo, fizemos um ciclo sobre o aniversário do estudo que o professor Michael Porter fez sobre Portugal, e, portanto, esse estudo incidiu muito na competitividade e nos clusters, e, portanto, pareceu-nos muito interessante fazer agora uma espécie de ponto de situação sobre como é que a agenda dos clusters está em termos de tendências, desafios e daquilo que se coloca. E temos aqui connosco hoje, de facto, duas pessoas que dispensam apresentações. A Ana Lehmann é professora na FEP, é também administradora de várias empresas, portanto tem um percurso do ponto de vista académico e também de gestão muito ligado a estes temas da competitividade e é a pessoa certa para nos introduzir aqui uma dimensão conceptual sobre o tema. E depois temos o Alberto Pezzi, que é o responsável há muitos anos da Axio, que é uma agência de competitividade da Catalunha, mas é também responsável e tem tido vários cargos nesse sentido do TCI, que é o The Competitive Institute, que é uma entidade internacional com sede em Barcelona, que foi criada há muitos anos para esta área dos clusters. E, portanto, nós vamos ter aqui, como é normal, dois momentos em que, de facto, primeiro temos a intervenção dos nossos oradores e depois um comentário e uma discussão entre todos. Duas notas sobre as sessões que vamos ter a seguir. Fazemos isso todas as sessões. Portanto, na próxima quinta-feira, o Nuno Rogério, que apresentou há 2 meses um livro que eu recomendo, que acho que é um livro muito interessante, O Abominável Mundo Novo, que é uma versão daquilo que ele entende que é hoje este mundo complexo em que vivemos, vai estar connosco e, portanto, a ideia é comentarmos com ele e discutirmos com ele o livro. Portanto, é obviamente uma sessão muito de discussão e, portanto, aquilo que eu aconselhava é que as pessoas pelo menos tivessem lido o livro para poder dar suma à discussão. E depois, na próxima terça-feira, dia 28, temos uma coisa um bocado diferente, que também tem a ver com o livro. Portanto, vai ser lançado mundialmente esta quinta-feira o livro Asterix na Lusitânia. Portanto, o Asterix e o Obelix e essa gente toda decidiram fazer uma incursão na Lusitânia. O autor não é o Gugeni, porque, portanto, já tinha morrido, mas são outros autores e, portanto, o livro vai ser apresentado em Lisboa na segunda, dia 27. E depois, dia 28, vamos fazer uma sessão online com o João Coleto, que é um conhecido historiador, e com o editor da Leia, portanto, que é o Vítor Silva Mota, que está há muitos anos na ASA e que acompanhou todo o processo de publicação do livro. Muito bem. Passamos à sessão 2 e eu passo de imediato a palavra à Ana, depois ao Alberto e depois temos aqui uma discussão de todos. Ana, muito obrigado, está bem?
Muito obrigada, Jaime, por este convite. É um privilégio estar aqui com o Alberto Pezzi, que conheço e respeito muito há muitos anos também, do TCI e de outras conferências onde temos estado muito juntos. É um prazer e boa tarde a todos. Eu vou apresentar aqui alguns slides que posso depois partilhar no grupo, apenas como, enfim, a organização das ideias. A ideia não é discutir tudo em detalhe, mas fazer aqui alguns highlights que já me pediram para fazer uma introdução um pouco mais conceptual, para depois fazermos a ligação com, enfim, os casos que o Alberto vai apresentar. Portanto, eu vou aqui só partilhar o ecrã. Não sei se neste momento já estão a ver. Podem-me só confirmar, Jaime?
Sim, conseguimos. Só se conseguir maximizar a apresentação.
Sim, é isso.
Está ótimo,
ok,
está ótimo.
perfeito.
Está perfeito.
Ótimo.
Então vamos a isto. Então, com o moto Desafios dos Clusters, eu vou primeiro fazer um enquadramento, vou passar de uma forma mais rápida os slides iniciais e os slides finais. Vou lançar assim algumas ideias para discussão depois entre todos, nomeadamente o renascimento da política industrial, por exemplo, que é um tema que acho que dá, de facto, um bom mote também para a discussão subsequente. Portanto, todos nós, enfim, estamos a par do que são clusters, mas reavivar um pouco aqui a importância e a relevância da proximidade e da concentração. Há uma ampla evidência, e, portanto, isto está muito por trás do fenómeno dos clusters. No fundo, é relevar a dimensão subnacional no âmbito da geração, transmissão e difusão de conhecimento, ou seja, da importância da colocalização de um conjunto de entidades, de atividades, de conhecimento, saberes, a importância de conhecimento tácito e complexo que é sticky, como, enfim, pegajoso, como às vezes sabemos, e cuja transferência às vezes é difícil e é facilitada pela colocalização. Também um conjunto de outras variáveis, nomeadamente que as pessoas não mudam facilmente de localização. Há uma série de evidências que o spin-off muitas vezes, enfim, já localizam-se na proximidade, a importância do contacto presencial e, portanto, todas estas vantagens que, no fundo, estão na base do fenómeno dos clusters, importa tê-las presentes, e isto não é nada de novo. Isto já o senhor Marshall, que está aqui retratado, em 1890, escreveu amplamente sobre isto, sobre o que nós conhecemos hoje em dia como economias de localização. Eu não vou aqui, enfim, estar aqui a analisá-las em detalhe, mas vemos a Marshall a teorização inicial sobre as economias de localização e de aglomeração, com base nas externalidades que esta colocalização permite e, no fundo, dito em linguagem mais moderna, as vantagens competitivas e de inovação comparativas de um país, competitivas das empresas, derivam de fenómenos que são localizados. Portanto, e o Marshall sobre clusters falou, não com esta palavra, mas com base em aglomerações, falou na sua obra Industry and Trade. Portanto, aqui, de facto, todos sabemos que os clusters materializam um conjunto de benefícios e de externalidades para as empresas, podem ser da mesma indústria ou relacionadas. E aqui é muito interessante o conceito mais recente, que foi há uma década e meia proposto por autores como Boschman, das variedades relacionadas. Eu vou falar disso, nomeadamente, nos grandes desafios que eu vejo para os clusters. Mas, de facto, isto já vem de Marshall, não é? Do século XIX, já se falava na vantagem de acesso a bacias de emprego especializadas, proximidade a clientes fornecedores, os spillovers de conhecimento e como isto facilita a inovação. Depois vieram os nossos amigos da Escola de Florença, liderados por Beccatini, que falaram de tecidos industriais e de especialização flexível, sobretudo com base, enfim, em aglomerados de pequenas e médias empresas. Portanto, isto tem muita relação com o que se passa em Portugal e com o início dos clusters. Depois lá veio nosso conhecido Michael Porter, que falou na importância da concentração geográfica, mas também da interconexão de uma variedade de entidades num certo domínio que compete, mas ao mesmo tempo coopera. E, portanto, como estas vantagens locacionais depois se traduzam na competitividade internacional, falando não só da cooperação, mas também do que hoje em dia se fala daquele palavrão, buzzword da competition, não é? Que ao mesmo tempo cooperam e competem, não é? Passando isto, depois o Alberto vai falar melhor disto, mas agora, enfim, passamos de uma abordagem de clusters setoriais e eu aqui, o Alberto, approaches to cluster related varieties, on thematic clusters that are not sectoral, but they have an underlying idea. Portanto, agora passando outra vez para o português, o Alberto falará disto melhor que ninguém. Hoje em dia, nós concebemos os clusters não do ponto de vista estritamente setorial, como antigamente, mas falando, por exemplo, eu falei de um do País Basco, que é para o Alberto falará da Catalunha, mas, por exemplo, baseado no cluster do surf, não é? Ou seja, e que aqui tem um conjunto de subsetores relacionados. E, portanto, é interessante ver também como um mindset sobre o que é um cluster tem variado. Depois há um tema mais recente dos distritos de inovação, mais focado no âmbito específico da inovação, e aqui depois também, enfim, o Alberto, se quiser, aqui em Barcelona temos ótimos exemplos. Portanto, agora parando com os exemplos e deixando isso para o Alberto, claro que a forma clássica de ver os clusters também apresenta algumas limitações e desafios, não é? Hoje em dia, num mundo globalizado e digital, a competição raramente é local. As próprias empresas, muitas delas já não seguem o processo de internacionalização gradual e, hoje em dia, há muitas empresas que já nascem globais e, portanto, isto desafia um pouco a visão de clusters que tínhamos no passado, mas que, a meu ver, é perfeitamente reconciliável com a visão tradicional dos clusters. Portanto, aqui o que é o conceito de proximidade? Hoje em dia, a proximidade geográfica é tão relevante como no passado ou temos que adicionar outras dimensões de proximidade? Depois, o tema das possibilidades digitais e da própria distância ser um ativo, ou seja, a importância também do acesso a conhecimento remoto como forma de potenciar as vantagens locacionais. E, portanto, de que forma, aqui já são algumas ideias que eu deixo, depois podemos explorar melhor na discussão. A proximidade geográfica tem um trade-off, ou reforça outras dimensões de proximidade, nomeadamente a proximidade que é facilitada pelo digital. Até há aqui um fenómeno de complementaridade ou será que é de substituição? Depois, será que a proximidade a mais é um handicap ou um problema para a inovação? E, portanto, hoje em dia, cada vez mais no âmbito da inovação aberta, destas novas tendências da inovação, ninguém inova sozinho. E será que os nossos parceiros estão ao lado ou será que temos que ir a novas enfim, oportunidades que se calhar estão do outro lado do mundo, mas que hoje em dia, com as ferramentas que temos, conseguimos lá chegar? Portanto, hoje em dia, a geografia da produção de conhecimento e inovação, no fundo, eu diria, é um mote que deixo, convoca em simultâneas aglomerações mais localizadas, mas ao mesmo tempo as redes globais e tudo em conjunto. Há um artigo muito interessante que está aqui citado, que eu depois facilitarei estes slides para quem estiver interessado, que é a questão dos clusters de conhecimento, o local buzz e os global pipelines, ou seja, é o local buzz, é o conhecimento localizado, ou os global pipelines que nos ajudam, de facto, a dar o salto e a sermos competitivos internacionalmente no processo de criação, de difusão e utilização de conhecimento. Eu agora, e já entrando mais numa reta final, e deixando aqui também algumas ideias, que me parecem algumas questões relevantes para debate, é como conciliar territorialidade e remotização. Ou seja, a visão de ecossistemas que temos é uma visão de ecossistema localizado ou é uma visão de ecossistema com fronteiras porosas e que podem estar elementos deste grande organismo do outro lado do planeta? Pois é, como é que o tema dos clusters se reconcilia com o que determinados autores chamaram hoje em dia os grand challenges? Ou seja, eu aqui deixo três ideias para potencial exploração. O digital, como é que a economia de plataformas, o tema das cadeias de globais, como é que podemos de facto reconciliar com este tema dos clusters? Se os clusters ajudam ou desajudam? O tema da sustentabilidade, e aqui é muito interessante, para quem se interessa, como acho que todos nos interessamos de clusters, há uma série de clusters hoje em dia em que se fala de net zero clusters, como é que a infraestrutura de energia até pode ligar diferentes clusters em diferentes partes do mundo, etc., de energia digital. E o tema que me parece muito importante relacionar com este, que é o tema dos desafios geopolíticos. Hoje em dia, segundo alguns autores, estamos num momento em que há, de facto, o chamado Great Decoupling, não é? Por exemplo, entre os Estados Unidos e a China, em que a China se tornou a fábrica do mundo e veio desafiar clusters, por exemplo, na Europa. Qual é o papel da Europa no meio disto tudo? Por exemplo, o distrito mais famoso de que Becatina falava, que é o distrito têxtil de Prato, foi comprado por chineses, por investidores chineses. Portanto, como é que este tema da geopolítica também se enquadra em tudo isto? E hoje em dia, com a crise atual e, enfim, a instabilidade que temos, o tecnonacionalismo. Pronto, uma das ideias que eu acho que é fascinante é que hoje em dia os grandes embates geopolíticos, a meu ver, têm uma raiz profundamente tecnológica. A luta pelas grandes tecnologias, seja o 5G, seja a eletrificação, seja o tema da transição energética, que chamam a Guerra Fria Tecnológica. Portanto, deixo aqui isto, eu estou mesmo a terminar. Outro mote que queria deixar. Então, e qual é o papel no meio disto tudo das políticas públicas? E em que domínios? Porque as políticas públicas hoje em dia têm uma grande diversidade e multidimensionalidade, estão em múltiplas jurisdições, múltiplos níveis. Aliás, há políticas que são absolutamente fundamentais para ligar os clusters, que têm o problema sério da extraterritorialidade. Quem manda nos cabos submarinos? Não é nenhum Estado-nação. Quem manda no espaço? Não é nenhum... Portanto, hoje em dia, isto é tudo controlado por satélites e cabos submarinos. O digital. E quem não perceber isto, de facto, não percebe como o mundo atual funciona. E estas questões são fundamentais para a tal questão da remotização e do conhecimento e da ligação dos clusters de bacias de conhecimento que estão em todo o mundo. E o tema do regresso da nova política industrial e a política de clusters. Hoje em dia, qual é o domínio, e aqui o Alberto também poderá falar melhor, É uma política de inovação, sobretudo, ou é uma política de outras coisas? Crescimento, internacionalização, competitividade. Portanto, aqui eu até vou deixar aqui umas figuras, que é a política de clusters, está aqui em número 6, como uma de várias políticas de inovação. Aqui eu não vou explorar, porque vou mesmo terminar para deixar tempo para a discussão. A política de clusters, que está, portanto, aqui, alguns no slide, como uma política justamente de inovação. A política de clusters apareceu agora, está num nível subnacional. Como é que isto tudo se reconcilia? Portanto, fica aqui no ar para discussão. E, portanto, neste âmbito, e para finalizar, é o último slide, estamos a assistir a um renascimento de uma política industrial com certos dilemas. Portanto, política industrial que trata de temas como autonomia estratégica, como soberania, como resiliência, como nacionalismo, o tema fundamental da dupla transição verde e digital, mas eu aqui vou deixar uma ideia final. Mas, afinal, a política industrial caracteriza-se por ser distorcora da alocação de recursos, ou seja, ser específica. A antiga política industrial era mais setorial, mais específica. Hoje em dia, todas as medidas que eu vejo nos novos papers de política industrial são políticas que são políticas quase anti-industriais. São políticas cada vez mais horizontais, de skills, de talento, de infraestruturas, de abertura da economia, da concorrência, defesa e reciprocidade. Mas, afinal, isto é alguma política industrial. Pronto, e com isto termino e passo a palavra ao Jaime para moderar.
Okay,
Agora
so
foi o
now we are
Alberto.
going to pass to Alberto, okay? Alberto, please, it's your time now.
Vou parar de
Boa tarde a todos. Muito obrigado, Ana, pela intervenção e desculpe, mas a minha intervenção em inglês. So I switch to English. I'm sorry, but my level of Portuguese is not enough for intervening in a session like this. So thank you very much. Well, my approach tonight in order to explain a bit. Well, thanks very much, Jaime, for the invitation also to this smart event. I think, one of the few participants from outside Portugal since the beginning in this group. I am very proud of it, but unfortunately, the limitation of not speaking fluent Portuguese, it's a problem. But anyway, my intervention will be structured around a few key topics related with cluster, and as a complement a bit to what Anna gives a very good theoretical framework, but also with some interesting example like the cluster of surf that we saw many years ago in a TCI conference in the Basque Country. I wanted to insist, and sorry on this, but I think that in the last 30 years around the world explaining what a cluster, I wanted to insist a bit on elaborating a bit on the definition of cluster. That we see from Anna this is a classic approach on Porter, but today there is a lot of well, sometimes confusion about the concept of cluster, because we tend to people tend to mix up the concept of cluster as a natural phenomenon of the economy. So all the positive externalities, all the advantage of that are coming from having this concentration of cluster initiatives. So using clusters, using this favorable environment to understand the strategic challenge of companies, and so using and what we defined a cluster reinforcement initiative, a cluster initiative, and then also and this is a phenomenon that happens basically in the last 20 years, tend to confound with the cluster organization. The cluster organization, that is an entity that have the main aim to reinforce the competitiveness of a cluster. So these three elements, well, sometimes tend to be confused, and I think it's important to have in mind that cluster exists beyond policies, and it is a natural phenomenon of the economy that exists since many years and sometimes centuries, even much before than Porter captured so well the definition of cluster. I will share also with you some few slides, because it will happen help to well, to better understand my main presentation. This is this concept about cluster. Then there is a changing role for cluster, and we see this very evident. It was very evident also in the last conference, TCI conference in Dublin last week. So, cluster has changed a bit. Also, what is their role in competitiveness, but we talk a bit later about that. And I want also to I will start using the example of Catalonia. That is where I developed my professional activity in the past 25 years. I started working with cluster also when I was in Italy, but I really going deep on building this expertise on cluster in Catalonia. So let's see a bit if this works. Okay. Catalonia today is according to the data of the European Cluster Panorama, you see the more dark dot in the Europe map of regions is the region of Europe with the most the more important number of cluster organizations in Europe. This this according to the cluster panorama that was published last year by European Commission. This means different things. One, that the cluster policy have been very successful here, but also it represents also a threat, an important challenge for us, because you have how to deal with all these clusters. Also, probably Catalonia is one of the places in which cluster policy and the story of this evolution have been more documented. The last document about that is the case that was published by Harvard Business School, written by Professor Christian Kettet, that also participated in this forum in the past, about the evolution of cluster policy in Catalonia over the last 3 decades. If we see where Catalonia is positioned in this, Catalonia was among this small group of regions, not country, at that epoch, that translated a bit the theory of Michael Porter, and is into a practical program for competitiveness reinforcement. This was something that occurs in few other places around the world, basically in 2-3 regions here in Europe, 2 of them in Spain, and then in the United States, in places like Arizona or Massachusetts. Chihuahua is a bit an exception in northern Mexico. There is many other places, among them Portugal, that had a study, commissioned a study to Michael Porter and its related consultant Monitor, regarding the cluster development, mapping the cluster present in the territory and whatever. But then this was not translated into a program with concrete actions, and this is a bit the difference. Catalonia, by contrast, was very active also, not only in talking about cluster and making a study, but also in translating it into practice. In fact, the first case about of Harvard Business School related with cluster written by Harvard Business School was those of leather tanning industry 30 years ago. Then when Porter wrote his second book about cluster and competitiveness, that is on competition, and in which there is a special chapter dedicated to the translation of his theory into practice. He chose the example, you cannot read there, but it is written the microcluster in Catalonia, but chosen as an example of this translating this theory into practice. It was an example of Catalonia and the case that I already mentioned. This, I think, is important because in Catalonia we try to combine always practice, but with a strong support from theory, and in this case also from one of the most prestigious university in the world, but also others. And this is important because one of the key elements of the cluster policy in Catalonia that make also its success in continuity is the fact that it is we develop an original methodology based on the theory of Michael Porter, but translated into practice. If we see what is the origin of clusters policy in Catalonia, in fact, there is two main reasons. One is because really Catalonia, but here we are not the exclusivity, because also some part of northern Italy or Flanders or other part in Europe where there is a strong concentration of cluster because of reason linked to economic history, and don't enter here in details. But also an important reason was that we had this right leadership in the right momentum. So somebody that in this case, and leadership is it's a very important element in cluster development, because really it is something that you need to grasp the momentum. You need to have somebody that is visionary, at least at the beginning, to introduce this new way of working with companies, and here in our case was, I mentioned many times in the past, was our former Minister of Industry, Antonio Subirà, that have for his background the capacity of understanding the disruptive power of this new methodology for economic development, and to apply it, because in that moment he had the political power as Minister of Industry to do it. Today, still, I mentioned this is the elements of this of the Catalan cluster policy are the original methodologies that remain practically the same since that moment. That I don't enter in the detail, but is, as Christian Kettel explained in the case of 3 decades of cluster policy in Catalonia, is a combination of understanding the way firms compete. That is something very specific of this competitive strategy book from Michael Porter, that is normally used in other contexts, not for economic development, but more for company strategy, together with the put this in a context of the business environment in which the companies compete. Also, another element is the way that how public-private partnership is intended. So the government always acted as catalyzer, but then there should be a direct involvement of private sector and private leadership in carrying out the initiative. And then, but you can find this that this is the things that were already there since the beginning, but probably the third most important element of our method of our case is the fact that we focus our work as Catalan government in trying to develop a series of specialized services that aim to professionalize cluster management. This is started a bit later, also more or less coinciding with this communication from the European Commission of 2008, in which the Commission said that is a communication, the only one until now regarding clusters, they say that is entitled World-Class Cluster, and in which the Commission said we don't need more cluster initiatives, we need cluster initiatives that are professionalized, that are internationalized, and that are enough critical mass to compete internationally. And this basically should be done through training and having professionals that are managing the cluster. This is something that we try to adopt, and then still we are working on this sense. And then I wanted to, but this it seems that evolved over time. So our cluster, the evolution of our cluster policy is basically something that we build over time. We started with this micro cluster approach. Then we also consolidate a bit this team. When I joined the government in 2003, there was basically no internal skills for cluster development. All was done with external consultant, and then we started building this team. Now we have a team of 15 full-time professionals, very senior people working with cluster, and this I think is something very distinctive of Catalonia. There is no other places, at least here in Europe, that have an internal team as so professionalized and so senior working with cluster. Then also we had many other things. The cluster basically, and here I a bit connect with what I was saying at the beginning, what is the changing role of cluster. Clusters now have become proactive actors, a tool for also implementing other horizontal policy. Basically, also one of the concepts that was saying last week in that a lot of participants highlight last week in Dublin was this that cluster are playing a key role in what are the key transition in Europe, the digital and green transition in Europe, but also in elements like the issue of resilience, how make business and industry much more resilient to external shock. So a changing role that for us in Catalonia, we intended also a role in which cluster play a role toward what we call not only competitiveness, but we had the objective of sustainable competitiveness. Now, one of the most important programs we developed in the last 5 years in Catalonia regarding cluster is the program related with shared value creation. So through cluster, we try to develop project and initiative that have not only a value from the point of view of from the economic point of view, but also from the point of view of social, from the point of view of environmental initiative, and basically using the word of also the creator of this concept of share value, that are basically two professors from Harvard University. One of those is Michael Porter, but the other that play an important role also is Mark Kramer. We try to find business opportunity in social problems. So, and this is something that I think is quite revolutionary. It's something that really gives a new role to cluster, and is an important part of our work today. I have much more slides, but I pass it very quickly. This is a bit a snapshot of the cluster initiative we have ongoing in Catalonia. There are 27 cluster organizations that represent 1/3 of the productive economy in terms of jobs, in terms of total turnover. We have clusters that are more traditionally defined, like it could be a cluster in digital, a cluster on the fashion side. We are cluster in food that related with wine. That is a very old business also here in Catalonia. But also we have cluster initiative that really are being defined with an innovative approach. And I'm talking about the sport cluster in the SCAT, or the kids cluster that is a cluster that are grouping company by a common market, that are the ones of kids, or other like the cluster related with mental health, that is WeMind cluster. That is something that, is each one of these initiatives has its own story. Or maybe the cluster on water management, the Catalan Water Partnership, that is a cluster that was created as a consequence of one of the most important problems at environmental level here in Catalonia, that is the scarcity of water. During the important drought we had in the years 2008, 2009, a group of company with the push of the government created this cluster that then, when we had this repeating problem just a couple of years ago, this year the situation changed completely, but between 2022 and 2024, we have one of the most important drought here in Catalonia in the past century. And thanks to this cluster, to the creation of this cluster, also some effects have been mitigated, because this cluster, that is a very technological cluster, helped to find solution to the productive cycle and manufacturing cycle of other industries, for instance, food, but also textile manufacturing, whatever, in order to make these value chains more efficient under the point of view of the saving of water. So this is a lot of synergy and connectivity between the different clusters. This is, I don't enter in detail because I don't have that. It is the strategy we have regarding cluster. As I mentioned before, it's based on this world-class cluster communication that still for us is very important, and is based in trying to have the excellence in working with cluster. Let me stop my presentation here, because there is a lot of other thing I wanted to, but because I wanted to spend the last 2 minutes with two concepts. One, cluster for us have been always an answer to some moment of crisis. So according a bit to the Chinese ideograms that defined the word cluster, that is at the same time danger and opportunity, cluster have this specific story, at least in Catalonia. Cluster policy has its origin in a competitiveness gap crisis, when basically, and this is explaining in the case, when Catalonia within Spain entered the what is today European Union, there is a lot, the Catalan industry were not competitive at all. There is a lot of competitiveness gap in the business model, and because of the dictatorship and whatever, and cluster helped to solve this problem, because it was about rethinking obsolete business models. It has been, we had the biggest change in cluster policy when traditional business model entered into a crisis with offshoring, with the globalization maybe basically 25 years ago. And so this we respond changing a bit the concept of cluster with this new cluster initiative that I just mentioned. And lately, also, the other business disruption we have in cluster policy have been the ones related with the crisis of capitalism and twin transition. And this originated a bit the launch of the program on share value and whatever. This on one hand. On the other hand, and I also I see that Bob Roll, thanks Bob for joining from Tucson. It just joined. Bob is a very all-time friends in TCI, and really an inspiring leader for all the business community worldwide. So thanks for joining this session. And the other is 2 words about, as I promised at the beginning, regarding the recent TCI annual gathering in Dublin, and maybe Bobby could also add something. I think that in Dublin we had for the first time as keynotes and welcoming the conference, the Prime Minister of a country, but not only a Prime Minister, but we had 2 actually. We had Honorable Michael Martin, that is the Prime Minister of Republic of Ireland, Taoiseach Sedge in Gaelic, and then we have also Michelle O'Neill, that is the minister, the first minister, that in a different position of Northern Ireland. And this is because cluster has been played also a role in what is the creation of prosperity and wealth, and also with a political signification in the island of Ireland. In fact, one of the organizers of the conference together with TCI was Intertrade Island. That Intertrade Island is an organization that was established in 1999 under the Good Friday Agreement to foster the cooperation between South and North Ireland. And that epoch, and I see that most of you are here, you certainly remember that the situation was not so quiet in this moment. And now cluster was chosen as a tool for economic development to foster this collaboration, also political level, to create clusters that are cross-border. We visited some during last week, and now there is a strong commitment from both the government of the Republic of Ireland, but also from Northern Ireland, to carry on this initiative in many sectors, like advanced manufacturing, like cybersecurity, fintech, and whatever. So I think that also clusters have a value that go beyond the economic sphere. And I stop here.
Okay, thank you very much, Alberto. And then we go to the discussion. Okay, as we have here Bob, of course we have other people, and of course we are going to give the word. But Bob, do you want to make any very brief comment on what was said by Albert, especially?
You're talking about Bob Rowe?
Yes, we are listening. Yes, please.
Yes. Alberto, you gave a magnificent presentation, and since I was started in January of '72, I'm one of the old guys in the cluster. But the most important 2 minutes, if I have it, I try to tell several people in Dublin that the cluster concept is a co-opetition. We created the word, we cooperate and compete. When I first started in Arizona, we're the only optics cluster, and I started doing in Florida, Pennsylvania, and around the United. What are you doing that for? If I compete in Arizona, I compete nationally. Well, wait a minute. I can compete internationally. So we had about 16 optics clusters we interface with. Wonderful. We cooperate and compete. Now, the world situation, Alberto mentioned that we have a lot of wars going on, and being part Ukrainian, my pin, that I ask everybody present, this is the important thing. Alberto, you laid out all the things, how we progressed over time. This is the next progression for the concept of clusters, that we can compete and cooperate. China wants to be the #1 economy in the world. They should be. I want them to be, but I'm going to compete against them. I'm going to be better, but I got to do my technology to be better than them because they're very good. And I'm going to have to keep my prices down because the world benefits from that. The technology goes up and all that kind of stuff. And about a month ago, I was on a cluster line talking, and there were 5 different nations represented: democratic, communist, socialistic, dictatorship, and a fifth kind. I've got it written down. But we were conversing like we are now, peacefully and transferring thoughts and ideas. So the idea that TCI, you people in TCI, I've presented this now 5 times, and with humility lost, 5 nations ambassadors want me to present it to the United Nations. It's called the Preamble to the United Nations for the Rights of Nations and People in Companies. And when it's Lithuania, or Egypt, Mexico, or other places in the world, because they understand that we meet this TCI concept, and they can't say it doesn't work because of you, that we have proven over the last 35 years that co-opetition can peacefully work and we can mutually benefit. So that's what I asked TCI to carry forward. Get in touch with me. I'm building an army, and my problem right now is I got 24 pages written. As I said, I've presented. I got to get it down to 4 to present it to the United Nations. So, in this last week, I 17 hours there, 18 hours back, and 4 hours a night. I'm exhausted. I'm an old man, but I still have a mission, and you guys can help me, guys and gals. So that's my thought that I leave and seed, and hopefully you will carry that on as a family. Thank you very much for the
Thank you very
time.
much, Bob. Okay, we have now. We are trying to join. Thank you very much. It was an honor to have you here with us. We know that you are one, as Albert told, fathers of the classes, and it's an honor to have you with us. So I think it's better now to go on in English because, of course, we have here Bob, and it's important that he understands what we're going to say. We have here Manuel Porto, that is from the University of Coimbra. I think that Fernando Ferreira Sousa also intends to tell something later,
Yes.
and then I don't know if José Manuel Mendonça and José Carlos Caldeira will try to have some insights.
Yes.
So no point. A very
Yes, I
brief
have two short
please.
questions, but very interesting. The first one is mainly addressed to Alberto Repesi. What has been or should be the role of public authorities promoting these clusters? They're efficient, I mean, they depend on how depending. It seems to see the case of Barcelona. I have a grandson studying there. But what has been and should be the role of public authorities? Are they necessary? They are essential. And second question is more addressed to Anna Lehman. How is it possible to have better success? It is something interesting. It is more in a centralized country like Portugal want to have, so Lisbon to have everything in Lisbon, or it is easier to have these clusters in a country decentralized with the initiative everywhere. I was saying yes, I think in general economical, a study recent from the Committee of the Regions saying there has been a strong increase in competition in Portugal in the central and the north of Portugal. So is it so important because Raymond spoke about territorial things, the conditions to have more efficient clusters and the competitiveness? These are
Okay.
the two questions. And
Alberto,
thank you very much for the
yes,
presentation.
thank you very much, Samuel Porto. Did you understand the questions?
Not very well because the audio was a bit disturbed. So you ask Manuel for the role of cluster, understand on
And whether the central country can be more efficient or not. I compare Portugal or Greece with Germany, Holland, and so on. And I see that the centralized countries are more efficient worldwide. But I mean, there are many people in Portugal who think that to compete, we should put everything, research and so on, the main research centers, only in one point, in Lisbon. What is more efficient?
Okay,
or decentralized? This is my
okay.
question.
Alberto, we try to have two more comments, okay? You don't mind?
Yes, well, I don't think. I think it's a quite complex question to reply with in short. So I think that at the beginning, really, the cluster phenomenon was a regional phenomenon, and we have seen the Pyrenean region. Also, we had well, I mentioned Catalonia, but also Arizona was one of the because actually this proximity, the fact of interaction, it's clustering. It's also about human interaction. It's I mentioned before in my intervention that it's about also leadership, but also at all levels. So it is very important. Also and this happen easier in if there is this proximity. So. But at the same time, also it is important what Manuel was saying. So I don't have an answer really to be honest on univoc answer on that. I think that we can see many different cases in which it could be the one or the other. So
okay, perfect. Anna, do you want to make any comment on
well, the centralized or not centralized features of the country, it's also, I think it's very complex because I really think the clusters, well, to be successful, there must be a really endogenous strength, of the region. And the fact that Portugal is one of the most centralized OECD countries, as we know. I think if there was more like, and as we know, the European Union is more divided into regions. So I think strong regions on balance could be a positive thing. However, I think there's a place for nationwide policies and to somehow have a view of the country as a whole. But I am personally in favor of the idea of having stronger regional empowerment.
Okay. We have
Yes,
here. Okay.
and also let me add,
Yes,
Jaime,
please.
one thing. I think that if we look at concrete examples, the example of France, in which there was regarding cluster policy, was a very central planified policy with well, a lot of resources also, and but at the end, what they have and I don't know, there is nobody from France here because maybe they have something to say, but I think that the what they call the cluster policy, the policy of the pole de competitivité, is not really what we intend for a cluster policy, because it's more a program very related, heavily related with research and development, more than all the other component, more strategic of cluster. So I think this is an example of that a centralized approach maybe don't work so well like it worked at a more decentralized in Spain, for instance, the case of Catalonia, the case of the Basque Country, or many other cases in, but also depend on the size of the, because in a case, for instance, of Ireland, or in the case of places like Denmark, even Portugal, maybe even at a national level, it could work because also size matters.
Okay. Prudence Sousa, please. And then we have Rui Tocha. Ok, yes, please.
É suposto continuarmos em inglês ou não se ouve?
You're muted, Jaime.
No, Fernando. I thought that it was better to speak in English because we have here Bob Texan, and I think it's important that he understands what they're saying. Okay, it's a question of okay.
Okay, I have three comments besides thanking the two presentators for their presentation. First of all, I think that we should say, in what concerns Portugal, that the slide of Alberto Pezzi that put it Portugal as a country where the translation of the application of the Porter methodology is around 98. I think we should correct that and say it was in the beginning of the 90s that it happened. The problem, and it was something that happened with a large merit of Mr. Miramaral, who was the Minister of Industry at the moment. I don't know if he's there, but he uses to attend this kind of
No, but today he's not here with us. He told me that he could not attend. Okay.
Okay, it was his merit, and it was the monitor company that was connected, very largely connected with Porter, that came to Portugal and made an application of the methodology that Jaime already mentioned in the beginning of this meeting. So I think the problem in Portugal, this is the first comment, is that after that, in spite of it was something that happened very early in Portugal, questions of political appropriation and fashion um, contributed largely to a use of an instrumental use of the idea of Porter and of clusters that happened to not to reach any sense, and to have biased kinds of application with no real important results. This is the first idea, and this is an opinion much more than a comment. Secondly, clusters as a concept is, as Anna said, very largely connected with the idea of agglomeration, and is also, as she also pointed out, very much connected with the territorial aspects and with the industrial policy questions. So we have here a mix of missing developments of the political public policies in Portugal. Very few are connected with the regional and territorial aspects. Political industry is something that has became out of fashion and became applicated only in terms of political appropriation, as I said. And the agglomeration is something that has a positive side, but can also have a negative side, which is happening, for example, in the region capital of Portugal. And all those lacks are contributing to a very unfortunate application of clusters as a concept in Portugal. The third is a question to both of you. As both of you talked to and explained to us several kinds of clusters and cluster applications, I was wondering, how do you see an extension like the one that has been developed by Hidalgo and Hausmann in the complexity, in context of the complexity of the economy, and connected with also with the territorial base of competitiveness, and the diversification of related products, and the ways those related products are a different kind of cluster that has very much to do with the industrial policy as it should be in the recent times.
Okay, now we can pass. Sorry, I had a problem with internet. We have also Anna and Albert, if you don't mind, you have here okay, 3 people that want to speak. I don't know. Okay, I will pass the word to Ritosha, and then Jacques Caldeira, and then I pass to both of you. Ritosha and Jacques Caldeira, if you want to be brief, okay, so that we have some space.
We cannot hear you, Rui.
O microfone, Vitor.
Ritosha, please.
Eu acho que ele saiu já.
Okay, Jacques Caldeira, please.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for the great speeches, both Ana and Alberto. There are a few things, I like to talk about things that I know, and there are a few things that I know, and one of them is a little bit of experience of creating clusters and running clusters. So let me highlight 3 brief statements and then make a question. The statement is that clusters are particularly relevant in the case of when you have a scattered economy, you know, a lot of SMEs, more traditional sectors, and which is the case of our economy. Clusters are also particularly relevant when we are facing new and more complex problems, as it was said, because they are tools together. They can go above sectors and specific sectors and look more into value chains or complex problems. So they are becoming more and more important in the current context. And also they should be, and they can be, and they should be important parts of the industrial strategy, the implementation of the industrial strategies of the countries. So I like to highlight these 3, let's say, points that were somehow mentioned in the different presentations. Now, in Portugal, I believe that we have a very successful set of clusters from the initial group, and also some additions afterwards. We have some very successful clusters, including if we measure them, if we compare by international standards. And I would say, despite of the turbulence of the cluster policy in Portugal, and if we really want to look now more from the policy side, we don't have really a cluster. I don't think we can say that we have a cluster policy in Portugal, because it was created in the beginning, but then along the years, depending on the different governments and the different responsibles, it changed very much, and it was very turbulent. And so it's not. Alberto has a slide that says it all. In the Catalonia, the policy is stable and coherent and complete, and we are not neither a stable nor a coherent cluster policy. But, and this is linked to my question, how can we have a cluster policy that is, as I said, an implementation army for industrial policy if we don't have an industrial policy in Portugal? And I will repeat it again, we don't have an industrial policy in Portugal, so it's difficult then that to have a cluster policy. And to give an example on how important, how mobilizing clusters can be, the one that I know better, Produtec, was responsible for one of the PRR Resilience and Recovery Plan innovation agendas that we have in Portugal. And it was possible to gather in one project 108 partners from the production technology cluster, plus representative companies from 14 different industrial sectors, plus the research organizations and the public authorities and the associations. So a project like this, it will be impossible to set up without a cluster. So this is the potential, that the mobilizing potential that clusters can have, and the effect that it can have in economy. So my question now is the following. It looks like that we are able to have clusters, and some of them successful, even without having a solid cluster policy and an industrial policy. And my question is, do you know other examples in the world where this happens, or is a kind of Portuguese unique situation? Thank you.
Okay, so I think now we pass to Anna and to Alberto, and then we have José Manuel Mendonça. Rui Tocha, I know that he has some problems with the microphone, but we'll try that he resolves, and other people. We start with Anna, and then we pass to Alberto. Anna, please.
Yes, so thank you for the comments. I think it's really important now to look at clusters with a bit of these related varieties and concepts that are not just purely sectoral. So either both Fernando and José Carlos spoke very well about that. And one example that José Carlos mentioned here in Portugal, Produtec, cluster of advanced production technologies, is really one that I really know and respect a lot. I think it's a very successful initiative. In terms of clusters and not having cluster policies and industrial policy. Yes, in terms of the case of Portugal, you know, I'm a bit suspicious because I have a government suspicious in the sense that I have the government responsibilities in the past on this, and I think you know, those of you that know me know my ideas on that, but my ideas are the following. I think Portugal needs badly to focus on manufacturing industry, on advanced manufacturing industry. And I think that is valid also for Europe, but I think Portugal is not a very big country, but is a country that has a great industrial tradition. And I don't see, even when I was in government, for me it was rather frustrating sometimes, because I thought we should go much further in terms of supporting industry, because it's the main driver of innovation and many other, important characteristics. So I think we have a deficit on that, particularly in Portugal, but we have a deficit on that in Europe, because all the time, new documents, new white papers, new green papers, etc. on this. But I would like to see it in a more muscled way. Otherwise, I think, sometimes I say this in conferences, Europe risks being a museum if we don't really take a more proactive action and concentrate more resources on a modern version of industrial policy, and the core part of it, in my opinion, would be to support clusters, but to support clusters that exist and clusters that the members value them, because we know a lot, Portuguese colleagues like José Carlos Caldeira, José Manuel Mendonça, Jaime Quezado, Fernando, etc., Fernando Freire Sousa, we know that there are a lot of others that even the members don't want to recognize and contribute to the cluster. So I think we should be maybe more selective and concentrate more resources on clusters that really work. But I think here we have José Manuel Mendonça wanting to talk. I'm sure he can add to that.
Yes. Okay. Alberto, do you want to make any brief comment before passing to the other people, please? Alberto, I don't know if you are listening.
Yeah. I'm listening.
Yes,
sorry for I was muted. No, I think that Anna explained very well as well. Just to respond to the very first comment from Fernando. Yes, it's true. As far as I know, the first report on made by Monitor in cluster in Portugal was a bit earlier in 1994, I believe, 93, 94. So a few years after Catalonia also, but well, this the slide is indicative that it is something. It's not precise of the to the year, but I think it was one of the first country. Regarding, and then I jump to the what because I wanted to comment to José Carlos Caldeira and ask about. What to do when you really don't have a structured policy, if it's possible to have at the same time a successful cluster initiative. I think that yes, at the end it is very difficult to have to build a consistent and long-term vision cluster policy. There is not very much example. For instance, if you look at in Latin America, that just a big to wind the vision not only from Europe. Practically almost all countries in Latin America have started at a point a cluster program, a cluster policy, and whatever, and probably the ones that is at the moment is trying to consolidate a bit this policy, because they had more than 10 years experience of continuative experience is Colombia. The rest started, and then also very much advanced, kind of like Chile, like Mexico, like Brazil. They have a lot of cluster program at regional, national level, but then really it is not a consolidated policy. And this depends for me from two elements that I also try to explain in my brief intervention. One, it is at a point the leadership, that somebody that think that it is a good tool, a good element for a bit of reshaping, changing a bit the way of working in economic development. But also then there is another important factor that maybe it's the most important ones also in Catalonia, that to create a professional team that is able to continue this work beyond the change in politics, the change in the leadership and whatever. And this is really it is very well explained in the case also from Christian Kettel, and the previous case we wrote from IES also ourselves, in which really this work at technical level, it's probably the most important factor to assure continuity and to assure really benefits for companies and clusters.
Okay, Rui Tosh, I think you still have some problems, right, with the sound? Okay, I will pass to José Manuel Mendonça, and then we will see. José Manuel, thank you very much.
Hello. Thank you very much for these two excellent presentations and discussions. I'd like to add up a new perspective, building on a comment from José Carlos Caldeira and on another from Fernando Freire Sousa. We know that clusters are able to build global value chains or significant parts of these global value chains. And José Carlos Caldeira was mentioning it, and we have many examples of this. But this will just be built on competitive advantage from the companies, but also from the research organizations in the territory, in the ecosystem. And this is a statement and also a question for Alberto and Ana. The capability to advance in multiple technologies and to integrate them, embedding them in tech-based products and services appears to me to be determinant. And this links to this very important notion that Fernando Fred Souza was referring, the economic complexity, because in the end, you have to compete in exports, and if you compete with high value complex products, difficult to match, that's where you win. But my point is that sometimes you go out of the clusters, or the clusters help companies to go out of the cluster. And we have some unicorns. Portugal is proud of having many unicorns, or a number of unicorns, which is kind of outsized comparing to the size of the country. A famous one is Fidzai, which is a science-based artificial intelligence company, which now does this fraud detection of the federal government of Mr. Trump with an American subsidiary, and it's now a global company. But another one, more recent one, is TechEver, a drone company that started with drones to rescue, to locate, to safe and rescue immigrants in the Mediterranean and other applications, and now became a unicorn because of Ukraine. Not with attacking drones, but with drones, vigilant drones, mapping drones. And what is the secret? The secret, in my view, and after talking with some experts, is that they build also from existing clusters, because there are many things that come from mold, from Podotech, from different clusters. And then they were able to do, at very low cost, search and rescue, SAR, search and rescue radar, with low cost, that does not use a GPS, can be used day and night in different meteorological conditions. And that's the key point. And only their ability to build from the clusters with plastics, metal and mechanics, electronics, communications, integrating, etc., etc., etc. And thanks to the clusters having some assembly and manufacturing capability in Portugal locally, otherwise it would be too costly, has transformed them into a unicorn. Of course, taking advantage of an existing opportunity, but we don't have a defense cluster. We have some companies, but we cannot say we have a defense cluster. But this company, which is also in defense, emerged because of the clusters. So I'd like you to discuss this point.
Okay, before passing to Ana and to Alberto, we have here also with us José Elias Freitas. He worked for many years in the European Commission, precisely in the unit of the clusters. José Elias, do you want to make any question to our speakers, please?
Yes, hello. Thanks, Jaime. Jaime, very pleased to be in this meeting and to see Alberto as well, and Professor Anne. The point I think that is now rising very high in the discussions is about the difficulty, the gap in Europe to conduct disruptive innovation. So based on, we have Draghi report, we have Letter report, and I think that the third element that is really compounding the new approach is the need to engage in a disruptive innovation, and of course, disruptive innovation, I think it uses a lot of resources. It's not something that a small company can do out of striking the fingers, clapping the fingers. So I wonder if the clusters are discussing this challenge. Whether, well, an example, a very simple example of large scale cooperation is the famous and old Airbus cluster. So we are still in the time where in Europe we don't cooperate, the clusters don't cooperate along high value and disruptive projects. And my question is, when are we discussing this? Thank you.
So I will pass to Anna and to Albert, and I know that Bob wants to speak, but Bob, I will pass you after that, okay? Thank you. Now I pass to Albert and then to Anna. Albert, please.
Yes, thanks for the comment, and I'm happy to also to see Jose again that we share some trips and a lot of discussion on cluster when he was at the commission. Well, I agree on that. I think that there are very complex problems. I think that. One of the elements and on the feature of cluster that I haven't time to discuss is and one of the elements we try to in Catalonia is this continued renewals of the cluster portfolio. I think that we assist, and this is not only exclusive of cluster, of hybridization of sector. And if we intend clusters as a static organization, as in which the perimeter, the scope of the initiative are defined, and in a sense there is not this openness to this hybridization with other sector, I think cluster are not very useful tool. The most successful cluster we have also in Catalonia, and as the ones that have been able to change and to evolve. I give an example. One of the strongest more traditional sector in North Catalonia is pork meat cluster with close to 10,000 billion euros turnover. And this cluster have to also to a bit to reinvent. That now the cluster is not more only meat, but it's also alternative protein. That is something that was an important trend in the same. For instance, to mention the challenges, the important challenge at strategic level that all automotive cluster are going through in Europe, in Catalonia, in Europe, worldwide, for the change of the means of mobility as a service, that the came of electric vehicle that implies, for instance, new actors that were not there 10 years ago. So I think that this capacity of cluster to maintain the flexibility of giving entrance to new actors, new companies, to even sometimes to disappear. And we had in our cluster program now we have a lot of clusters that as a result of mergers, because and this is, I think it is an important element I would like to highlight. Well, I don't know. There is so much more to add, but I don't want to monopolize. And if Anna wanted to
Anna,
add
please.
something more.
Yes. Anna, we are not listening.
I was just unmuting. Yes. Well, thank you for your comments. Very important comments. Yes, I think the issue of complexity and high value added is key if we are looking for clusters to thrive globally. They really need to move into that direction. Then, especially in countries that are not so big, but looking at European clusters, I think we need to be really very much in that direction of embracing complexity and high value added. Because also nowadays with the digital transformation and Industry 4.0, we need to have a convergence of so many technologies and each product has a lot of services associated to it. So the issue of complexity is absolutely crucial. I agree with that, and with what the complexity that Fernando was saying, and also José Manuel Mendonça mentioned about the tech-based products and services. This is, in my opinion, absolutely crucial. Then on the issue that there was the example of that unicorn, TechAware, but also now the opportunity of the defense industries to getting more organized and getting critical mass, both in terms of countries, but also European-wide. I think here, for that, I think we need to get organized. Of course, clusters are themselves organizations and groups of many actors, but like imagine now that everyone is talking about this defense cluster. We do have the capabilities. We do have different areas, different clusters that can, different companies that can contribute to it. Here, I think probably it's not easy, but the key to success would be to manage to organize these capabilities, resources, the way these clusters work, and find ways to contribute to integrated solutions, like with what the cluster that José Carlos Caldeira already mentioned, Product is doing, to provide integrated solutions for practical problems and challenges of contemporary defense major issues. So I think a good view for that is the view of the ecosystem of like large corporates, startups, small or already scale-ups or unicorns, innovative small and medium firms, because we do have, thinking about what we have in the north of Portugal, for example, but all over Portugal, north, to really get together and embrace this view of contributing to integrated solutions. Because if you really want to be really world class, this is not a matter of just a company or a sector. It's about that complexity and high tech and value added. So really, if also, as José was saying, José Freitas, thank you, we need really to engage in disruptive innovations, but also building on what we already have. And, creating this dialogue, and not just of the localized clusters, but like with these global pipelines, and also not looking at it in a more national or regional way.
Okay, we have to conclude. I will pass to Bob, but Rui Tocha, do you want to make any very brief comment, because you have to close? Okay, please.
Now I can. Thank you very much. Just to thank for the nice presentations and to tell that it was a pleasure to meet Alberto last week in Ireland, and for a strange reason, I was the only Portuguese there. And this means that maybe the clusters in Portugal is suffering some disaccreditation, I would say, from the policy side. I don't know. The question is that what has been stated, and Alberto told this very clear. There is a new wave for clusters action, and these actions has been clear identified that the national programs are very important to join clusters around it, and to bring more competitiveness for the national companies, helping them to use the national markets to develop themselves and to explore then the internationalization and the international markets. So the government should use, at least has been identified by the Irish prime ministers, that they are using the clusters to tackle the big programs, the big challenges, like we have in Portugal right now with trains, with the defense, with the medical devices. So, of course, we need now to work together, bringing the clusters. That is the reason why I've been there representing Portugal clusters, because we try to show up that the results that we achieved in the past were very successful. In our case, the cluster for molds and plastics, we duplicated the exports in 10 years. 10 years. This is really important to state, because the modernization of our industry, very small companies achieve the 3rd place in Europe and the 8th in worldwide. So I believe, and I agree that we should use the clusters as organizations cooperating with different sectors, different areas to use and to take advantage of the opportunities that are created now with these new challenges. Thank you very much.
Okay, and to close, because we have to close at 7:30, please, Bob, do you want to make a final comment, please?
Yes, I want to endorse the cross-cluster stuff. We do that, aerospace, biomedical, optics, we do that. That's wonderful. But for all of you, I leave you 2 comments. One, you are missing investment money. You have some freeloaders in every one of your countries. I've been sermonizing it. We have what we call foundations. They are not the industry clusters, they're not the business. They're the banks and the venture capitalists and the transportation and these other industries. And we in Arizona started out demanding that they meet alone on their own on how the best way the banks can help the startup companies. Because if we grew and from 1996 to 2006 without money documented, only on dues, $250 a company, no money, we grew from 240 million to $2.4 billion. So for $100,000 investment over 10 years, we got $2 billion in gross. But that was because we were told the banks, you are going to do, or the venture capitalists, we created venture capital organization. If you're making money from what we're doing, because we put it in the banks, you're going to do this and this and this. And then they met with the clusters. So that's one of the big aspects I think I can leave as a final say that there is money on the table. And the other comment I was going to say, in my 17 years, I ran the cluster. Never, ever did any board member or any company get direct funding from any government, national, local funding organization. Say, wait a minute, they didn't get any money. Well, why did they participate? I would arrange with the Washington or the state that I would collect the bills for the airlines, the hotels, and everything from the companies that are going to go to Dublin. And the government, I had to make special arrangements, would pay those bills. But so no money got misused or misdirected by the companies. It was effectively solid. So those are my comments. That's how you run, with minimum amount of money and get tremendous results. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you very much, Alberto. Thank you very much, Bob. It was a great pleasure to have you with us. And also for all of us, I think this topic is a very important topic. And of course, we are going to have other discussion on that. Have a nice week for everybody. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Anna, for sharing this session.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.